When people watch movies, they tend to think of them as a visual experience. But the truth is, sound plays a vital role in the way audiences experience films. The sense of perspective created through dialogue, sound effects, and music can often define whether audiences enjoy a film or not. Sound can become an important storytelling device when wielded by a good filmmaker. Today, we will talk about a specific kind of sound and how that can affect movies. Music has always been very closely tied with cinema at a far more granular level than we realize. Rhythm, as an aspect of the grammar of music, is also an important aspect in cinema because it helps us structure time within the world of a film. If you'd like to understand more about this, please read my article Time Signatures, Rhythm in Indian Dance, Music and Cinema, published in nartaki.com, one of the world's leading digital portals on Indian performing arts. I will link the article in the description. If one is to examine cinema and music at a granular level, perhaps one sees a natural connection between the two crafts. So today, we take a look at how music came to be such an important part of cinema. The story starts in the era of silent films, when live performances would accompany them. The purpose of this music was to provide emotional context to these films. It set the mood and kept the audience engaged. These performances were basically the background score to these films and could involve a solo pianist or full orchestras. These musicians would play classical pieces, popular compositions, or even original music. And their cue sheets would often have detailed descriptions of the film's actions so that they could sync the music to the film. Many films from that period are now available with the scores that used to be played for them laid underneath the film as if it were an actual background score. In the other big film industry in the world, Bollywood, something similar was happening in this period. There too, musicians would accompany the screening of silent films with their performances. There was a clear shift in the scale at which music for cinema was created in Hollywood starting 1920. The studio system started during this period, which is believed to be the golden period of Hollywood. This is when films became a spectacle and a form of artistic expression. As more and more filmmakers experimented with visual grammar, musicians began to experiment with scores as well. Prominent films from this period, like The Wizard of Oz, It's a Wonderful Life, and Going My Way, are remembered for their background scores as much as for their visual excellence. Musical cinema also became an important feature during this period, and films did not just have background scores, but also original songs composed for films that would be performed on screen by actors. This period lasted from 1920 to about 1960. At the other end of the world, another big film industry was witnessing the advent of a genre of music that would be called Bollywood music from then on. Music became an increasingly important part of filmmaking in India and very quickly began to include songs that would be performed on screen. In 1931, India's first talkie named Alamara was released, which contained 7 songs. Not long after this, another film named Shireen Farhad was released in the theatres and contained 42 song sequences. In the early days of Bollywood music, actors and actresses sang and performed these songs as Hollywood actors and actresses continue to do even today. Even back then, Bollywood was a very prolific film industry. It produced 930 films between 1931 and 1940. Unlike Hollywood, where the major shift in film music happened as a result of big studios controlling business, in Bollywood, the next stage of film music came about as a result of business moving from studios to independent producers starting 1940. However, since studios continued to pay actors and actresses more than independent producers, it became difficult for independent producers to find actors and actresses who could sing, and that led to the birth of a technique that revolutionized film music in India: playback singing. Playback singing is when a singer's voice is recorded separately and actors and actresses lip-sync their words on screen. If you'd like to know more about how Bollywood and film music developed in the initial years after independence, watch the brilliant Indian web series on Amazon Prime Video called Jubilee. Created and directed by Vikramaditya Motwane, this is one of my favorite web series to have come out in the last few years. In fact, since India was still struggling to recover from the effects of colonial rule during this period, the film industry did not have access to good film equipment and playback singing became a necessity. In fact, Indian films were not shot with synchronized sound till 2001, when the Oscar-nominated film Lagan became the first film to have sync sound. The effects of this continue to affect the way Indian film industries work even today. Additional dialogue recording, or ADR, which is when dialogues are recorded in a studio after the film has been shot, is far more common in India than it is in the West. This often requires the actor to watch the film being played in front of them and speak in sync with their lip movements on screen. This is a very specific skill set and can be quite difficult to master. Since this is done more often in India even today compared to the West, where shooting a film with sync sound is far more common, Indian actors tend to be more comfortable with recording ADR compared to their European or North American counterparts. In Hollywood, the decline of the studio system happened later than it did in Bollywood. When the golden period of Hollywood ended in 1960 and business shifted from studios to independent producers, there was more experimentation. Jazz, rock and electronic music began to influence film music, and world music started getting incorporated. This was particularly the result of the birth of relatively new genres of cinema, such as science fiction. Films like The Magnificent Seven and West Side Story were prominent films from this period. In India, as studios took a back seat and more power was given to independent producers and directors, they began to create space for more experimental music. This was a moment in time when Hollywood and Bollywood were experiencing similar artistic patterns at two opposite ends of the world. This is a period when in India, music directors began to play an important role in the film industry. A music director in Bollywood normally composes music specifically for the film, but is also responsible for securing the rights to any existing music that may be used. One of the most famous music directors of Bollywood is R.D. Burman, known for creating some of the most popular Bollywood songs we hear today. There was one major difference in the way in which music industries of Western Europe and North America developed differently from India. In the West, the creation of film music was the result of the music and film industries coming together. In India, the birth of the popular music industry was the direct result of the film industry, and therefore the two crafts were far more closely tied together in India than they were in the West. As a result of this, the government has yet to develop a proper framework for the monetization of film music in India. In fact, in 2016, India's popular music industry generated only $0.09 per capita in trade revenue. This makes it one of the most poorly monetized music industries in the world, and is primarily because the government has not laid a proper framework for copyrights, publishing, and licensing. This also means that producers and directors of a film benefit far more from the music in that film than the actual composers and musicians who created the music do. Interestingly though, much of India's filmmaking success at the international stage has come from our music, with the likes of A.R. Rahman winning the Oscars for Best Original Song and Best Original Score for Slumdog Millionaire. Just on the topic of sound in cinema, Russell Pukuti also won the Oscar for Best Sound Mixing for Slumdog Millionaire in the same year as Rahman. More recently, Bombay Jayashree was nominated for a Best Original Song Oscar for Pai's Lullaby from the film Life of Pai, and M.M. Keeravani and Chandra Bose won the Best Original Song Oscar for Natu Natu from the film RRR. So many Hollywood films too are remembered as much for their music as they are for the visuals and story structure. Ever since web series have become a thing, many of them have created epic background scores and music albums too. In fact, some, like the Indian web series Bandish Bandits, which I reviewed a few weeks ago on this very YouTube channel, make music the hero of the series. Is there a background score from a film or web series that you like to listen to? Let me know in the comment section. If you've enjoyed the video, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. I'll be back very soon with another interesting video. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.